Yeah, that Piers Morgan thing was huge for you.
Yes.
That was huge.
Came out of nothing.
Yeah.
It came out of nowhere.
A comedian friend of mine, Amir K, connected us, and he works with me a lot on the road. And this was absolutely, this was just so funny and insightful and ridiculous.
Yes.
Did you know it would have that big of an
No.
impact? It has 22 million views.
Yes. Yeah. That's, I went into that and I was warned by everyone that I know that not to go on the show.
Yeah.
Because at the time, with October 7th, there was a certain story and a certain perception, and no one was allowed to talk outside of the perception. It was all one-sided. And my wife is half Palestinian, and her family, many of them are in Gaza.
Oh.
And they were bombed, and she lost many of her family members all through the years, but it became so natural that Gaza gets.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we are doing a reaction video and revisiting a podcast from about 2 months ago between Bassem Youssef and Theo, which I thought was a really, really good discussion between the two. I certainly learned a lot, so I think it's definitely going to benefit a lot of viewers. Let's continue.
Bomb that it's crazy that this is a part of their life. So we don't even talk about it. It's
right.
Like I don't even hear anyone about anybody of her family until a bomb goes on. And that's not just like the last 8 months. I'm talking about like years. So when that happened, and I saw this is one-sided, and my side of the story is not being allowed to talk, but nobody is willing to listen because everybody was hysterical. So when he went there and he said, like, how's everybody? How's your family? I was like, well, I know I tried to kill my wife, but she's using my kids as human shields. So I used the same stuff that they're using because the way that they were justifying the continuous attack was ridiculous. One of them was by Ben Shapiro and even DeSantis. He said, well, Israel warns Palestinians before bombing them. It's like, oh my God, how cute! Wow. So like if Putin warns Ukrainians, it's okay for Putin to bomb Ukraine because as long as you warn them, that's fine. And I found it like I thought like I think Israel.
I think this is a thing that a lot of people love about Bassem Youssef. He has such a calm demeanor about himself, and especially his first interview with Piers Morgan and the way he explained the situation in Gaza was in a way that was different from everybody else. And I think it resonated a lot more with people as well with what he had to say.
Became so effective of warning them that they actually warn them ahead of their funeral. They actually been sending flowers to the funeral. It's like we're very sorry for your upcoming loss. We're gonna be there in 10. I mean, it's like, are you guys gaslighting us? And then I was hearing.
Bearing in mind, guys, Bassem Youssef, so his wife is Palestinian. He's had family, or she's had family who has lost family members during the war and before the war. This is not new to them. They've experienced this for many years. And I hats off to Bassem, the way he's explained it. He's almost explained it in a way where it hasn't really affected him or his family. But of course it has. Of course it has. But the way he explains it in such a way where people can understand and relate as well.
Oh, there's so many babies we kill, but we cannot help it. What do you mean? If you're the most funded, most advanced, most trained, most supported military in the Middle East and you can't help killing babies, maybe you can stick to your day job. Maybe genocide is not the hobby for you. It's just, so it kind of like drew, it was, for me, the justification just drove me crazy. So I took every single element that they were taking and I just regurgitated back to them.
Right.
And I said, so what should Israel do? It's like exactly what they did. Kill more people. Why not kill more? Kill more, because the whole idea, if you talk about ceasefire, of peace stopping the killing, you have all kind of arguments not to. So, all right, let's do whatever you want, guys. Because it is funny how the most crazy question that they asked me, remember that, Theo? What's the proportionate response? What's the proportion?
Guys, before Bassem Youssef talks about this next bit, it's just to go back a little. If you really think about it, some of the things that the Israeli officials have said, where they've informed civilians before they attacked them by dropping leaflets, I mean, that's just almost barbaric if you think about it. I don't know how people are just almost justifying it. and making it okay that they informed people before they attacked them. To me, that's barbaric. Let's continue.
How many dead bodies can we get away with?
Yeah, what's an evil? What makes things fair?
What's a good number to kill?
Yeah.
It's like I find it very interesting how the media suddenly is interested in calculus. It's like, if one Hamas rocket equals 10 Israeli strikes, how many funerals can we plan for next week? What is this? What is this?
Are there people in Gaza that are consuming your content that are able? That do you think it's bringing some relief? Because I can only imagine
If they have some internet,
right?
Because you understand, Gaza is basically it's sealed off.
Okay.
Even before October 7th, for forever. I love it how it was just like, we left Gaza. We're not occupying Gaza anymore. Yes, but you're making an embargo of sea and water and land, and you cannot give 5 calories inside without going through the checkpoint. So it is fine. It's like we're not occupying you, but we are locking you from the outside. Yeah. So,
I find it very intriguing that with almost every statement Bassem Youssef says, he always says it with a smile on his face. He always says it in a way which is quite humorous, but if you really read between the lines, he's actually making some very important points. Don't get it wrong, guys. This man is very intelligent. And he knows exactly what's going on.
they get internet.
Right.
Sometimes they do. And I get a lot of people supporting, and someone sent me a video that made me cry. In the middle, after a bombing, they were like sitting, kids, and they were playing my video. Somebody downloaded on they blamed my video on like an old television in the rubble, and that made me cry.
Oh, so yeah, just so my listeners know, because a lot of us we're curious about Israel and Palestine. You hear about it all the time, right? But some of us we don't even know like what's going on there.
Yeah,
you know, because also a lot of the news you get, you're like, is this news even accurate? You know, like what filters is the news going through?
You know what? Just before Theo continues, hats off to him too. I've watched the rest of the interview as well, but this man really comes across as somebody who's honest. And you can tell that obviously he doesn't have a lot of knowledge about this current situation, but he does ask some really, really good questions.
So, yeah, what do you feel like is happening between Israel and Palestine? What do you think is happening in Gaza? Is that the question?
Yeah, it is a very complicated question. Here is the question of the century. What's happening there? Well, I don't want to talk about October 7th, not just now, because things didn't start on October 7th.
Yes.
There is a country called Palestine that's been
yes.
there. And in this piece of land, many people have went in and out, had kingdoms, have empires, have states, and they were like any other place in the world, right?
Yeah.
So
when Bassem's referring to empires, some of the empires he might be referring to are the Ottomans, the Crusaders at one point. I think following the Ottomans, it was the British. Before that, there was...
very recently, and I would take as recent as like 150 years, there was a promise by the Jewish people in Europe to have a national state or a home in Palestine, which was very weird because most of those Jews were in Europe. And they were persecuted by people in Europe. Even before Hitler, there was pogroms all over. And there was like...
There were what all over?
Pogroms, like kind of like mini Holocaust, where they would like go persecute them and they would like displace them. Most Jews in Europe didn't have a good life in Europe, especially in Eastern Europe, especially in Ukraine and Russia. And
I didn't know that.
they have pogroms. It's called pogroms all over. They have been...
Pogroms?
Pogrom, Pogroms.
Yeah, pogrom, right here. An organized massacre of
I like how Theo Von just said pogroms.
Particular ethnic group, in particular that of Jewish people in Russia or Eastern Europe, what you just said.
So they have been treated...
I never knew that either.
Quite nasty in Europe for so many reasons. Many of them can actually track it back to the whole sin of Jews killing Jesus. And since then, the Catholic Church in Europe and many Christians in Europe have really... dealt with Jewish people in a horrible way. Years and years, it's not going well for them. And then after First War I, there was a promise by the British government to the Jews to establish a home in Palestine.
Why did they pick Palestine?
Exactly. Why?
Was there other options that they chose?
There was Argentina, Madagascar, and Uganda. And, as a matter of fact, the British government gave the Jewish people about 8,000 acres in Uganda in order to start a home. But it was difficult for the Jewish council at the time, or the Zionist council at the time, to bring people to go to Uganda or to Argentina. It's like, no, the only way that we can do it is to send them to Palestine, because it's the Holy Land, it's the Promised Land. So
did they choose Palestine, or the British people, or because this was after World War I? It was like Britain and America.
Yeah, in 1917, there's something called the Balfour Declaration, which is he was one of the British government who said, we can give you the state of Palestine as your homeland.
Okay.
But
Bring
before,
it up, Nick.
before 1917, there were many. Yeah, Balfour Declaration.
The Balfour Declaration was a public statement issued by the British government in 1917 during the First World War, announcing its support of the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine, then an Ottoman region with a small minority of Jewish population.
You know what? Big respect to Theo for fact-checking everything that Bassem Youssef is saying.
I like your fact checking everything, and it's coming great.
Well, this is good, because I always wonder some little things, and I know little things, but I don't know enough.
But before 1917, there was other trials, so with other options between for the
You know what? I really appreciate his honesty.
countries I told you. And you know what's the kicker? That's funny. Many Orthodox Jewish rabbis objected for Palestine to be the homeland, because in their Jewish faith, we cannot have a land for Israel until the Messiah, the real Messiah, because they don't believe in Jesus, their Messiah would come. So they were a huge opposition for having a land of Israel in Palestine.
In Palestine, because it was a
because it was not religious. It was not the time yet. They should wait until the Messiah to come, and then that will create the land of Israel.
Oh, I see. So wherever the Messiah showed up, that would be the land of Israel.
But the secular Zionists at the time, they said, like, okay, how about we build the land, and that will force him to come. So kind of like build it and they will come. How about that?
What Bassem Youssef said previously was something that even I didn't know. I didn't know that there was an option of other countries. I didn't know that Argentina, Uganda and Madagascar was on the radar as well, or as options. It's very interesting to know that Uganda, Madagascar and Argentina were alternative options. Not only that, but as Bassem said, 8,000 acres were given in Uganda for the Jewish people.
A biblical promise. Even they were not having a consensus of where should we have. So whoever tells you, oh, it's consensus, it's divine. No, they even had problems deciding. So anyways, and at that time, especially 1930s, after Hitler came to power, there were like droves and droves and droves of Jewish Germans and Jewish Polish people and Jewish Russian. They were like they went onto refugee boats, and they came to Palestine. And you know why? Because they were not granted visas by the United States. They were not granted visas by other European countries.
Wow, so a lot of Jewish, like German Jews, Polish Jews, they weren't granted visas by
the West.
But they were by Palestine.
And Palestinians didn't have anything because it was a mandate by the British. They were occupying that land, but they were Palestinian people. So this became the myth of a land with no people to the people with no land. And if you actually find that, you will actually find that this was one of the myths: a land with no people to the people with no land. So they will tell people, hey, there was no people living there, so it is ours. It is just a desert, but it was never a desert. There were like more than 1.2 million Palestinians living in that area, a piece of land.
Before the Balfour Declaration.
Before the Balfour Declaration. Then,
guys, we're going to leave the discussion there. I find that really beneficial. From what I could see, Theo find that really beneficial as well. I could see that he learned a lot from Bassem Youssef. Really interesting conversation. If you want to see a part 2, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Support me by liking and subscribing. I'll see you in my next video. Peace out.